Class 10th, the main course, read a book, First Flight Poetries. How to Tell Wild Animals by Carolyn Wells. Wells is an American writer and she is remembered largely for her popular mysteries. Initially, she was writing children's book and poetries, generally of humorous varieties, but then she moved on to become a mystery writer where she was influenced by certain mystery writers. The theme of this poem, How to Tell Wild Animals, is introducing wild animals in a very sarcastic way. When we talk about wild animals, they are visualized as dangerous predators and symbols of fear and death. But the poet here in this poem is talking about these wild, fierce, and dangerous animals in a very amusing way. She is presenting a very hilarious yet factual representation of these animals, which leaves the readers very amused that okay, we are talking about wild animals and it is still not scary. So, that is the theme of the poem. Rhyming scheme. If ever you should go by chance to jungles in the east, and if there should you advance a large and tawny beast, if he roars at you as you're dying, you'll know it is the Asian lion. Let's look at the last words of each line in the stanza. Line 1, chance. Line 3, advance, same rhyming. Line 2, east. Line 4, beast, same rhyming. Line 5 and 6, dine and lion, same rhyming. So the rhyming scheme of the poem is A B A B C C. Stanza 1. If ever you should go by chance to jungle in the east, and if there should to you advance a large and tawny beast, if it roars at you as you are dying, you'll know it's the Asian lion. There is enjambment in these lines. If you ever you should go by chance to jungle in the east, it's a sentence and it has been broken down. There is a poetic device called inversion in these lines where the writing style of an English sentence has been flipped. Generally, we have the subject of the sentence and then the object of the sentence, and there is a sequence of verb and subject in the sentence. This sequence, when it is reversed, it is called as inversion. For example, and if there should to you advance. This line has been put in the poem. In fact, it should have been if you should advance and there should be a lion. It should have been like this. So there is a jumbling up and reordering of the words in the sentence. This is called as inversion. Then there is allusion. Allusion is a device where a specific person or a legendary a reference is used in the poem to present a certain item or a person. Here he has used Asian lion, which is a legend and everybody knows about it. It's a familiar thing. Let's go to the literal meaning of this stanza. If ever you should go by chance to the jungles in the east, and if there should to you advance a large and tawny beast. So he's saying, if just in case you have a chance to go to the eastern jungles and you suddenly see that there is a large and tawny and dangerous beast advancing towards you, approaching you, and then if the animal roars, if the animal makes a dangerous sound, you should definitely know that you are encountering the Asian lion. So we can see in stanza 1, the poet is introducing you to the lion and how he roars and how he is dangerous and tawny and large, and it roars just as much to scare you to death. So that is the first introduction of the first animal. Next stanza. Or if sometime when roaming around a noble wild beast greets you with black stripes on a yellow ground, just notice if he eats you. This simple rule may help you learn the Bengal tiger to discern. We can see the poet is talking about the tiger in these lines. The first device here is alliteration, roaming round, same consonant sound of R. There is allusion where he's talking about the Bengal tiger. And again, there is inversion in these lines, or if sometime when roaming around. So it should have been actually when roaming around, if sometime. So there has been a jumbling up of the order of sentence. Let's go to the literal meaning. So the poet says that if you are again roaming around in the jungles of the east, and suddenly a very noble beast greets you. So again, he is putting it in a very sarcastic way. He is calling the animal beast also, that is, he is dangerous and evil and scary, and he is noble also. He is very gentle also. So this animal has black stripes on a yellow background of his body color. We know it is a tiger. And the poet tells you to be very careful when he is approaching towards you because he can eat you. So he is showing how dangerous and how fierce the tiger can be, that it may attack a person. So you should learn this very simple rule that you should be very safe from the Bengal tiger. And this is the next animal that the poet is introducing us to. Next stanza. If strolling forth a beast you view, whose hide with spots is peppered, as soon as he has leapt on you, you'll know it is the leopard. It'll do no good to roar with pain. He'll only leap and leap again. We can see the poet is talking about the leopard here. Poetic devices are alliteration and repetition here. Alliteration for he has same consonant sound of H, and repetition, the word lep has been repeated twice, lep and lep. The literal meaning of this stanza, he says, okay, now if you're moving forward in the jungle, if you're strolling again, and then you see again a beast, but this time the beast has a peppered spotty appearance like a leopard, which has black spots on his body as if the black pepper has been sprinkled all over it. So he's giving the physical appearance of the leopard. And as soon as you see that animal, it is very quick and very fast and very resilient. It can actually leap on you without you understanding. So you will know that you are now encountering a leopard, and it is going to be no good for you to make a noise or move or do any activity, because he is going to leap at an attack at you at a fraction of second. We all know leopard is the fastest animal on the earth. So it is very difficult to escape from the leopard. So all you have to do is stay quiet and make no noise and make no signs of pain or scare, because it is just going to leap on you and attack you. Next stanza. If you're walking around your yard, you meet a creature there who hugs you very, very hard. Be sure it's a bear. If you have any doubts, I guess he'll give you just one more caress. He's talking about beer in these lines. The poetic devices are enjambment, alliteration, be, beer, same consonant sound of B, and repetition, very, very, the word has been repeated. So, the literal meaning of this stanza, the poet says that if you're just walking around, bears are very friendly, omnivorous animals which can be seen around if you are living close to a wild area. So you can see a bear just if you are walking in your yard and you meet a very cute creature. Bears are symbols of love and cuteness and adorable beings. So you can meet a very cute creature who can actually come and hug you very, very hard, and then you are very sure that it is a bear. But just in case if you have a doubt of which animal it is and you don't recognize that it is a bear, you can be very sure if it tries to caress you or just stroke your body with love and affection. So that is a bear. The poet is presenting that the bear is a wild animal, but still it is a very caring and affectionate animal. Next stanza. Though to distinguish beast of prey a novice might nonplus, the crocodile you may tell from hyenas thus. Hyenas come with merry smiles, but if they weep, they're crocodiles. So in this stanza, poet is comparing the two animals, hyena and crocodile. The poetic devices here are alliteration, novice, might, nonplus. The same sound of N has been used, and enjambment. Literal meaning, he is saying that both crocodile and hyena are beasts of prey. They are carnivorous, hunting wild animals. And if you want to distinguish between the two, of which is hyena and which is crocodile, I can tell you a very new way of doing this differentiation of crocodile and hyena, because if they are both wild and they're both fierce and they're both carnivorous hunters, but hyenas are smiling animals and crocodiles are weeping animals. These comparisons are coming from the idioms of English language, where we call hyena as the laughing animal, which makes a laughing sound which mimics human laughing. So he's comparing, if it is smiling and laughing, it is a hyena. And we use the idiom crocodile tears for false crying. So if it cries, it is a crocodile. So he is just presenting the English language tools to present the difference between these two carnivorous animals by comparing them with specific human emotions. So crocodile are associated with tears and hyena is associated with laugh and smiles. Next stanza. The true chameleon is small, a lizard sort of thing. He hasn't any ears at all and not a single wing. If there is nothing on the tree, it's the chameleon that you see. He's talking about a chameleon in these lines. The poetic devices are alliteration, the tree, same consonant sound of the, and enjambment, of course. Literal meaning of this stanza. He says that chameleon is a very small lizard kind of a creature. It is not very clearly visible because it does not have a very vivid appearance of huge and large. Up until now, we are generally talking about the larger and huger beasts. But here he is talking about a very small creature which is just lying around like a lizard. So it does not have ears, it does not have a wing. So it is generally not visible. One, because it is small, and two, because it practices camouflaging. As we know, it changes color according to its background. So if you see that there is nothing on a tree, the tree is bare, you are sure to believe that there is a chameleon sitting there because it camouflages with the background of the tree. We all know that. So chameleon is such a small creature that, and it camouflages with the background. So if there is nothing around, sure to believe that there is a chameleon sitting on the place that you're seeing, which is actually barren. So in these lines, he's talking about the chameleon.